What's happening, my wonderful people? Welcome back to Bacon Bites. It's another week here at the podcast, and today's subject is going to be therapy dogs. Currently, I have a therapy dog. His name is Thor. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, and today's subject is therapy dogs. I currently have a therapy dog. His name is Thor. He's a chocolate lab, and he's approximately between 11 and 12 years old. My wife and I always argue about the year, so we'll go with 12 right now. He is officially retired. I retired him back on January 1 of this year. The main reason is his arthritis became too overwhelming for him to climb stairs, and so he's pretty much in retirement right now. I took Thor 3 times a week to a local city school system in Canton, Ohio. Took him to 2 different schools 3 times a week. We went on my lunch hour every week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. I gave up my lunch for therapy for the kids. And basically what we did is we went to school 3 times a week. We went to a study room for the kids, and the kids came and read to Thor. The cool thing about that is I just sat there. I had nothing to do with it. It was all Thor. The kids either laid on top of him, laid next to him, put their heads on him, or just sat at the desk and he laid down beside them. And the only thing I was there for is just to help with words that they didn't understand or didn't know how to pronunciate. So Thor did a great job for 8 years. It's a wonderful part of his life that he did serve for the community. But unfortunately, everything does have to come to an end. So we did have to retire him here on January 1 of this year. Not that I wanted to, and not that the kids wanted me to, but they did. They did give me a nice farewell party at the end of last year. Well, now on to what is needed to become or to have a therapy dog. Okay, now for training purposes, I trained Thor myself. I went to the website www.akc.org and looked up their Good Canine Citizen training program and testing. You can go to that website and see what is needed to for your dog to pass their 10 test program. Once he passes or she passes that program, then you get your certificate saying that your dog is a canine good citizen. And at that point, he then becomes a therapy dog. Most places that I can think of will accept that certification as a therapy dog, but check with your local institutions where you're going to be possibly applying for therapy dog to be used, and they'll let you know what they accept and don't accept. Now, on akc.org website, like I said, they have 10 tests that the dog must pass. And my dog Thor is passed them with flying colors, so to speak, pat on the back. Yay, Steve. Well, test number 1. Test number 1 is accepting a friendly stranger. What this test does is it demonstrates a dog to allow a friendly stranger to approach and speak to the handler in a natural and everyday situation. That way the dog doesn't growl, the dog doesn't, his hair doesn't stand up on back, like a ridgeback, doesn't get aggressive at all to the person. And the dog must show no sign of resentment or shyness towards this new stranger. So that's test number 1. Test number 2 is probably the easiest one. It's sitting politely for petting. What this test does is it demonstrates that your dog will sit in place for a person to pet or stroke its hair for long periods of time. And the dog must not show any type of aggression, or must not bark, or must not be shy at all when it comes to this particular test. Test number 3 is appearance and grooming. This one's a very simple one for most dogs, but there are some dogs that have difficulty with this. All this is just simply shows that the dog can be groomed with a brush or a comb, or checked for fleas by somebody, or fingers put in their mouth to check their teeth and tongue and gums. Basically what a veterinarian would do, and your therapy dog must allow a stranger to do this, as long as, of course, you allow it. But that is test number 3. Test number 4 is out for a walk, walking on a loose lead. Now, this is a difficult one, doing it out in public, and this is a major one that your dog has to pass. And this is the one that most dogs will fail. This one and number 5. When you go out for a walk, the dog must be on a loose lead, meaning that the dog must be attentive to the handler. He can be not restrictive in any way. In other words, on a short lead, to where you have full control of the dog. The dog must be able to turn right, turn left, and at least stop in one direction in between the turns. This is a tough one for most dogs. All right, test number 5. Walking through a crowd. This one's also tough for dogs, because dogs are always loving to sniff and smell and see who's wearing what's what and what's going on. While walking through a crowd, the dog must pay attention to the handler and not pay attention to any people or dogs or animals around them. They must be in full attention span when it comes to the handler itself. My dog had no problem doing this particular test. When we were there in the gymnasium at a school, one of the other testing judges, I guess you would call them, had a big Saint Bernard, and another handler had a black, looks like a short-coated terrier. Short-coated spaniel, maybe. But I had to walk my dog Thor. I had to walk Thor in between both of them while they walked in opposite directions. And Thor could not turn his head, could not pay attention to the other dogs or the other handlers. Thor had to pay attention to me solely. And of course, he passed. Then there's test number 6. Sit down on command and stay in place. This is also a tough one for dogs. Dogs hate to stay in one place more than, I'm guessing, 15, 20, 30 seconds. They do your command, and then they're back up on their feet running around. Well, with Thor, how to prove this one, I kind of went overboard on this one. I set Thor down at the end of the gymnasium. It's a basketball court, of course, so you know how long that is. I set him down at the one end and stepped away 5 feet and told him to stay. And then I kept walking, and I got a half court, and the judge says, what are you doing? I said, well, you never told me to stop. I didn't know how long or how far I should be away from my dog. And they looked at him and looked at me, and they said, yeah, that's more than enough, and yeah, he definitely passes that one. So good job, Thor. And this is a basic command. All dogs should know this anyhow. This is coming when called. Simple. Set your dog, place your dog. Again, like I did at the end of the gymnasium. And I was at half court, and I said, Thor, come. And that's all I had to say. And he come trotting down court all the way to me and sat down next to me when I told him to heel. Now, number 8 is a tough one for dogs. Again, it is reaction to another dog. What this test does is make sure that your dog does not have any type of reaction whatsoever to another dog that's around them, that's near them, or that's in a distance. For example, neighbor's dog is, across the yard as you're walking. Period. Cannot do anything about it. He must be on focus with you, attention to you 100% of the time. The test number 9 is also another tough one, especially if they use treats. This is called reaction to distraction. Your dog must be totally attentive to you 100% of the time. Now, that's what this tests do. That's what they prove. That you can handle your dog and that your dog is totally attentive to you. This is distraction. What they'll use is treats. They'll use horns. They'll use something loud like a plate. They'll drop a plastic plate, on the floor, or they'll bang a pan, or they'll drop a pan on the floor. And your dog can be aware of that noise. They can be aware that it happened. They can turn their head, but their attention must come back to you immediately. They can acknowledge it, is what I'm saying, but they can't do anything about it. They can't go investigate it. They can't bark at it. They can't growl. They can't be shy of it. They just have to sit there and just be aware of it. And number 10, my dog passed with flying colors. At the time, the trainers, judges told me that he was the best. He was the best dog that they've ever tested on this one. This one is called supervised separation. It's a simple thing where you take your dog, take the collar off of him, and lead, set him down in a down position, lay position, and you walk out of the room. This particular test, I think it takes about 5 minutes, I think is what it is. 5 or 10 minutes is the test time. Don't quote me on that. But I set my dog down, set Thor in a lay position, told him to stay. And I walked out of the room, and I was out of the room probably about 15 minutes because they kind of forgot about me because my dog was so good. He just laid there and did absolutely nothing. The Saint Bernard and the other dog were walking around and doing their thing and not behaving, and Thor they said he just laid there. We kind of forgot about you because we were doing your tests and filling out the paperwork for you, and so yeah, come on back in. So that is the 10 tests that you must pass for AKC, which is American Kennel Club, good canine, good citizen program, good canine good citizen program. That way you get to use your dog as a therapy dog. Like I said, this is just one of a couple different programs. This is the one I chose because my dog is AKC, and that goes on his records, on his papers for the future, that he did pass that particular test, and that he is a certified therapy dog. Those are the 10 tests that are required by the American Kennel Association for your dog to pass to get the Canine Good Citizen. That way your dog can become a therapy dog. Now, like I mentioned before, I personally trained my dog to pass all those tests. Hindsight, I would have trained specifically for those tests, but unfortunately at the time I did not know what the tests were, and I went in totally blind and looked at the paper when I was there getting ready to take the test to figure out what I needed to do with my dog. Because again, my dog was already pre-trained. Now, if you have a new dog or a new puppy that you want to take out and get trained instead of doing it yourself, per se, without any help, looking at PetSmart.com/training, they will train you / your dog to pass the Canine Good Citizen testing program. Check out their website. They've got packages put together. They've got your advanced, they have your premium, and they have your fundamental package. But talk to one of their trainers to find out exactly what you need to do to get the dog trained to pass that Good Citizen testing program. Cool thing about that is once you pass the test, most nursing homes will accept that certification. The school I went to, I should say the two schools I went to here in Canton, Ohio, the first one actually brought me into a program at the time that they were starting this, 9 years ago. Goodwill Industries was putting together this dog reading program that I applied to, and there was about 4 or 5 of us that applied, and they were paying for the testing program. So basically all I had to do was show up and pass the test, and I was in. They once my dog passed the test, they assigned me a school that was closest to where I worked because of what I wanted to do and the timeline I wanted to do it for. Some of the other people were retirees that could do it anytime during the day, and they could do it any day of the week. Now, me personally, I only had time to do it on my lunch hour. I talked to the owner of my company and asked him if I could bring my dog to work on those particular days. Explained to him that he was certified and that he would lay in the corner of my office and absolutely bother no one or anyone. And explained to him the reason behind it. What I would be doing is taking him to the schools and allowing the kids to read to him 3 times a week. So, like I told him, it's community service for us. It's good for the kids, and on the back end of it, can always be used for good advertisement for the company, because allowing me the time to take him to the schools, because it always took a little bit more than an hour, sometimes a little bit, an hour and a half, and my boss and the company didn't mind, because they knew on those specific days when I had my dog that things happen. Kids don't show up, or kids are running late, classes running late, kids are sick, have to reschedule things. Many different things can happen on those particular days with kids, and that it's not a true exactly 60-minute lunch hour for me. It could have been hour and a half, could have been 2 hours, it could have been 20 minutes when I had one kid and I came back. So that's averaged out to the timeline. And they were happy, I'm happy, and the schools were happy. So, with therapy dog, in comparison to a service dog, there are 2 different things. Now, why I like therapy dogs over service dogs is therapy dogs can go anywhere and at any time and help multiple people. A service dog is a one person or one owner dog. It services that particular person for whatever need and or it was trained for. That's one of the main reasons why I helped Thor be trained as a therapy dog. And another big difference is a therapy dog doesn't have the same. And I'm gonna use this word lightly. Does not have the same rights as a service dog does. So, for example, you want to take your dog onto an airplane. You cannot call it a service dog because it is not a service dog. They cannot lay there beside you in the plane or underneath your feet like most of those quote service dogs can, and they allow to do because of the government laws and regulations. Yours is a therapy dog. He does not have those rights as a service dog does. Remember, a service dog services the person that's handling him. With service dogs, there's only 2 questions that legally companies can ask. 1, is that a service dog? 2, what service does it provide to you? And that's only 2 questions they're legally allowed to ask. You don't have to prove that it's a service dog. You don't have to prove it to anybody that's a service dog. Legally, they don't have to show you that. Now, when it came to Thor and the schools, it being a therapy dog, meaning that he could see multiple people, then yes, I had to prove that he was certified. I had to show him the papers. And again, I was proud of that, so that was never a problem for me. I'm always proud to show my dog the paper that he passed his testing. That was a proud moment for me. Now, when it comes to service dogs, a lot of individuals that have them, are getting harassed by a lot of people, mainly because of the world today is some people are using fake service dogs or calling their dogs a service dog just to get the benefits and perks that might come free and or at discounted and or privileges to that person because of having a service dog. Unfortunately, it is what this world is. There are a lot of bad people in the world, and when they can curve the system to their benefit, there are those bad people in the world that do that, unfortunately. But service dogs is a whole nother podcast, and we'll leave that one for another day. Last part of this podcast is story time. Story time about Thor and a child at one of the schools that I went to every week. This child, I'll just use his first name. His first name was William. He was autistic. And William had difficulties coming to school. He had difficulties around other kids. He was very, I'll use the word as a loner, to himself when it came to school. But he's very intelligent, and he could read very, very well. So they talked to his parents. Of course, you have to sign a waiver, allowing the child to see Thor. And they were apprehensive at first. Because, they didn't understand the program, or, if this was new to William, and they weren't sure what was going to happen. So, like I told the teachers, and I said, well, just have him come in and see him. If the parents want to come in, that's fine. They can come in with William and see my dog and see Thor and sit down with us and talk to us and see how things go. Or I would even take Thor to their home or to a mutual place that we could meet, like a park or something like that at the time. Whatever it took, I wanted William to allow him to see Thor and allow Thor's big heart help William out when it came to reading and adjusting. Well, they brought William in to see Thor, and William sat there and was, apprehensive. And Thor, the way Thor is, he just walked over to William, sat down beside him, put his head on his lap, and just started licking his hand. Well, for some autistic children, William included, William did not like that. And he jerked really quick. But the great thing about Thor and his training is he didn't move. He just sat there, waiting patiently for William to, calm down and to pet him and to acknowledge him and to make friends with him. Well, eventually, after a few moments, William calmed down. Got his hand cleaned, of Thor's slobber. We told William it was okay, that Thor's friendly, to go ahead and just pet him on the top of his head. And he did. And from that moment on, they were best of friends. Every week, William would show up and would sit there in a chair, and Thor would be right beside him with his head in his lap. And William would read to him. And then eventually, I brought in a dog cushion, a big 3 foot by 3 foot dog pillow for Thor to lay on because of the hard cement floor in the classrooms. And wouldn't you know it, William saw that pillow, and he walked over and he laid down on the pillow. He called Thor, and Thor walked over and laid right there beside him. And for the next, I had William for 3 years. Yeah, I had William for 3 years. For the next 3 years, William laid down with him on a pillow and read to Thor every week of school year. And his parents said that was probably the best thing that ever happened to William at the time. Well, after 2.5 years, William transferred to another school. I came in on my normal Tuesday and asked, and they said, well, we're going to move up everybody by one person because William no longer goes to the school. And I questioned. I said, well, why? And they said, well, parents moved, another part of the city. I said, well, what school is he going to now? And they told me the school, which was on the other side of town. But it was still close enough to my job to where I could get there in a reasonable amount of time and allow him to read. Well, they did not have a program like this, so I went over to that school and talked to the principal. And the principal was apprehensive, and she says, I'm not sure, it's a dog in our school, and blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, you allow police dogs in here. And she goes, well, yeah, they're trained. I said, well, mine's trained too, and he's certified. I said, talk to, the principal over at the other school I go to, and, if you decide to allow me to come over, I'll stop by and we'll set up a schedule. I said, it's going to be very beneficial for William specifically. And she says, oh, William? I said, yeah, that's the reason I'm here. I personally want William to read to Thor every week. He's been doing it now for 2.5 years, and I don't want him to not read to Thor, for the second half of the year, only because his parents had to move. So they called me in 3 days, and we set up a meeting, and we surprised William. They called William down to the room, and this room was by the principal's office, so William thought he was in trouble. And he opened the door, and there was Thor, and he came running. He came running up to Thor and gave Thor a hug. And that was probably the best moment I've ever had with Thor. Sorry. But that's how much I love the kids. And how much the kids love Thor. Well, let's end on that one. I appreciate you listening. This has been Steve Bacon with stevebacon.com. And my podcast is Bacon Bites. We appreciate you listening. Peace out.